Hello students, this is going to be a lecture on basement waterproofing, which is one of the topics for your exam. So let us start with the lecture. The first point is that for making this lecture I have taken reference from the notes compiled by architect Nikita Khade, architect Hemant Joshi, architect Sudhanva Kolatkar. These notes have been given to you in the form of a PDF. So you can read those notes along with this lecture. Then I have taken reference from my book and from other sources. So it is important that you should refer to this lecture and also read the notes given to you. And I have also taken references from various websites and other textbooks. So let us go to the next part. What is the importance of waterproofing of basements? So for that, first you understand what is the use of basement, or why do we create basements and what do we use them for. So as you will see that the basements normally are not used for habitation purposes. That means they are not used for residential or commercial or shops and other things, but they are used normally for parking, then safe deposit vaults for banks, then air conditioning plants could be positioned in basements. There could be electrical panels, firefighting panels, and so on. So it is important that we should have a totally watertight basement, because the leakages can cause various problems. So first it would be causing unhealthy conditions, the growth of fungus and mold. Then there could be damage to vehicles which are parked. Then there could be short circuit of electrical equipment. There could be damage to AC plant and firefighting panels and such other things. And therefore it is very necessary that proper detailing of waterproofing has to be done when we are constructing basements. So then the question is, why do basements leak? So the first reason is that bad quality of construction. So the bad quality of construction can be because of various reasons. So first reason could be bad quality of materials which have been used. So you know that mostly the basements are made out of RCC. So the quality of cement, the aggregate, sand, etc., that has to be checked and has to be of a good quality. Second is bad quality of workmanship. So workmanship is absolutely important point in making good quality concrete. And therefore, if the quality of workmanship is bad, then there would be cracks, pores inside the RCC members through which the water can come inside. Next is improper supervision on the site. So the people who are supervising on the site, they may not apply themselves and do the supervision properly, or they could be ignorant about what is to be supervised. Next point is improper detailing. Here now the architect is very much involved, that he has to have a knowledge about different techniques of waterproofing, and his knowledge should be seen in the form of the drawings and the specifications that he gives, and also he should check whether they are being followed on the site or not. So it could be because of a lack of knowledge or lack of proper site investigation. So before you start the building, there has to be site investigation. What is the water level, what is the type of soil, and so on. And based on that, proper detailing has to be done. Then the point which we discussed was that whatever the knowledge the architect has may not be reflected in the drawings and specifications which he has done for the basement. Next would be the damage to the structure. So the structure could get damaged. Now this would be more dealing with the repairs, that is after the work is completed, then there could be damage to the structure. One of the reasons could be uneven settlement of the structure. So you know that this problem of uneven settlement will be there in clayey type of soil or soft soil, where some part of the structure might settle more than the other part, and in that case there could be cracks develop because of that. Then there could be damage due to harmful chemicals present in the soil. So you know that cement or concrete can be attacked by some chemicals like sulfates, and if such attack of chemicals is there, then it could damage the concrete, and therefore that could also cause a problem. Then there could be damage due to vibrations caused due to adjoining construction. So it is always a possibility that there is some blasting or some type of pile foundation, hammered piles or such other things which are going next to the site or next to the completed work, and those vibrations could lead to damage to the structure. Or again, damage could be caused due to other forces like earthquake. So that is the reason why the basements would leak. So there would be two important things which we should consider here. The first 2 points which we saw are the preventive measures. So here, if you pay attention to good quality of construction, if you do proper detailing, then you will prevent the water from entering into the structure. The third part would be to deal with repairs. So that means there is prevention, and then there would be remedy for any type of problem that could be caused. So the architect has to know both these techniques, or he has to pay attention to both these techniques. Now the next point which we are going to see is the terms used in the study of basement waterproofing. So the first term which we are going to use is positive and negative side. So positive side is the side on which water is present and it is trying to enter into the basement, while as the negative side is the side opposite to the positive side. So it would be always a good idea to do the waterproofing from the positive side, so that the water does not come into the structure at all, and therefore the structure is not damaged. In some cases the waterproofing is done from the negative side, that is from the inside. In this case the water will not be seen leaking on the inside, but it would have already entered the structure because there is no waterproofing done from the positive side. Next term is hydrostatic pressure. So you know that water table is there, and after the rainy seasons the water table rises, and in the summers the water table goes down. Now these are natural forces which have got tremendous they have got tremendous pressures can be applied due to these natural forces. So one of these forces is hydrostatic pressures, the pressure of the soil. So pressure on the raft slab or retaining walls of the basement due to the presence of subsoil water. So this type of hydrostatic pressure can act both in upward and sideways direction. Next would be water courses. So water courses or flowing water. So there could be streams or such other type of flowing water which could be there around the building, or there could be live streams which will continuously keep on adding water. Even if you try to remove it, again the water will get filled up. So this is all related to how you would do the soil investigation before you start the work, and doing mitigation of any such flowing water conditions which are there. Next is black cotton soil. This is one of the notorious type of soil. So any type of clay soil, especially black cotton soil, has got a problem that it always keeps on swelling when it absorbs the water. So in the rainy season it will swell, and in the dry season, as it loses the moisture, it is going to shrink. So this constant swelling and shrinking will cause stresses in the structure, and that will lead to cracks in the structure. So it is very important to understand what is the behavior of black cotton soil and take necessary measures while doing the detailing of the structure. So this diagram is showing you some of the things which we saw right now. So as you can see, this particular part is in contact with the water. This is called as the positive side, while as the inside part is called as the negative side. Here you can see the upward pressure due to the subsoil water. Here you can see the sideways pressure due to subsoil water. So this is the hydrostatic pressure as we saw. Then here this is giving you the aggressive chemicals like sulfates which could damage the concrete. And then there could be flowing water, and rising dampness as a result of the capillary action which would be there. So these are some of the terms which we can see in the pictorial form here. Now next term is called as the bentonite. What is bentonite? So it's a type of naturally occurring clay which swells in the presence of moisture. We'll learn more about this as in the further part of the lecture. We have already seen this term when we had learnt about pile foundations, if you remember. Next is perforated drain pipes. So these are pipes which are having perforations or holes at the bottom of the pipes, and they help in carrying away the water which is stagnant or which is next to the basement wall, and this stagnant water is taken inside by the perforated drain, and then it is taken to an underground water tank from where it can be removed. Next is gravel fill. So you know that for making a basement, excavation has to be done, and once the basement is ready, then the excavation has to be backfilled or filled back again. So in that case, if we fill that basement back again with the same black cotton soil or other type of soil, then that might retain water and it will again lead to presence of water next to the basement. So in such case, we try to fill that part which is excavated with a little coarse material which we call as the gravel or small pieces of stone. So it is the filling in the excavated portion consisting of stone gravel, allowing the water to flow down to the perforated drain pipes. Then tucking grooves. So there are grooves made inside the retaining structure in which some of the waterproofing membranes which are there are tucked into the grooves so that they are properly sealed, that the joint between the membrane and the wall is properly sealed. Water bars. Water bars, in this case the bar word is used so as to prevent, meaning that anybody is barred from entering into the classroom, like that water is barred from entering into the structure. So the bar word is not related to any reinforcement bar or anything like that, but the bar here is standing for preventing water from coming inside. So water bars are consisting of strip of impervious material placed in construction joint and expansion joints to prevent the entry of water through the joint. So this is an important point which you should note, and we'll see more about this in further part of the lecture. Water stops. Water stops are similar to water bars in function, but are not inserted inside the structure but are placed from outside at the joints. So both these terms, water bar and water stops, are related to the joints in the structure. And then there are two types of joints. One is called as the construction joint and the second is called as the expansion joint. Next is tanking. So this we'll see that tanking treatment or tanking type of waterproofing. So what does this tanking mean? So when we are doing waterproofing, the waterproofing treatment placed below basement slab and on the side walls forms a sort of a box or a tank around the structure. So unless the sides, the bottom and everything is covered from all sides, it will not function properly. Hence that entire waterproofing is going to be like a tank, or it is going to be like a basin, and hence it is going to be called as a tanking. Asphalt. Asphalt is an impervious material made of aggregates, binder and fillers. So the aggregates are crushed rocks. The binder is normally used as bitumen, and this asphalt is normally applied in several coats to create a waterproof membrane. Now let us try to see the different methods of waterproofing. Now before we try to see any method of waterproofing, the first important thing which we should note is that most of the basements are going to be made in concrete, because concrete is supposed to be an impervious material. So the first thing that one should ensure is that the quality of the concrete should be good. So the concrete is a homogeneous and waterproof material on its own, and therefore if it is properly produced and cast, it should form the first line of defense against water. Bad quality of concrete is responsible many times for leakages. So this is the important point, that the first line of defense is always good quality concrete. Second is integral waterproofing. What it means is that while making the concrete itself, while manufacturing the concrete, we are going to put some type of chemicals or compounds inside the concrete which will improve its waterproof qualities. So this means improving the waterproof qualities of concrete by adding certain chemicals or compounds in it during the manufacturing process. So such type of compounds may include chalk, talc, fuller's earth, alkaline silicates, aluminum sulfates, calcium chloride, then soap, petroleum oil, fatty acid compounds. So many of these materials will be available as powders or liquids, and they will be manufactured by companies the contractor would be mixing along with the concrete in the manufacturing process. So really speaking, is the chemical composition important for the architect? Well, not really. What you should know is that how these compounds function and how they are supposed to be mixed, in what proportion they are supposed to be mixed while during the concreting. And then your specifications would include possibly the names and the composition of various materials, or the manufacturer specifications would be included in the documentation which the architect would be doing. So that is why we must know about the integral waterproofing compounds. Now we saw that the first line of defense was the concrete. Now the second important line of defense is the detailing. So here again the architect's role is going to be very important. So the detailing of the joints and the necessary drawings that are to be done for detailing purpose. So remember that why we are considering the joints. The joints are going to be the source of leakage. When we cast concrete together as one single homogeneous structure, then it is naturally watertight. But whenever there is a joint in the concrete, then that becomes a weakness in the concrete, and from there the water can enter inside. So there are two types of joints which we are going to see: construction joints and expansion joints. These are unavoidable in construction. So construction joints occur at places where the process of construction stops at a certain day and then continues after a break. Okay, so it is many times not possible to cast everything at one time. For example, you are casting the raft, that is the bottom portion of the basement, and you also want to cast the retaining wall, which is the vertical part of the basement. Now both these things cannot be done at the same time, because you have to first cast the raft, allow it to set, and then only erect the formwork for the retaining wall and then cast it. So this is going to be a process. The two processes are going to be there, or what you will see is that there will be a break in the construction activity. So wherever there is a break in the construction activity, there will be a construction joint, and then that would form a problem as far as waterproofing is concerned. Then second is expansion joints. So when the structure becomes very big, so expansion joints are to be provided where the structure becomes excessively long or wide. Due to this, thermal stresses are created due to heating of the surface due to sun. This can damage the structure, and hence expansion joints are purposefully kept in the building to relieve the temperature stresses. So again, these are inevitable in case of large structures. So expansion joints have to be kept. So again, these joints again become vulnerable. So these joints become vulnerable to leakage, and therefore we have to use water bars and water stops in these particular joints. So the next sketch is showing you the such type of water bars. Now many times the water bar is misunderstood to be a metal bar or steel bar, but it is not like that. These bars or water bars are made out of rubber. So as you can see, this is a rubber membrane or a sheet. Now this sheet is put inside the concrete while the concrete is being cast. So what you will see is that this is the construction joint. So what it means is that this part of the concrete on this side, left side, is going to be cast on one day, and the second part will be cast after some time, after this part is set. So this water bar, which is a long length of strip like this, a rubber strip like this, will be put inside this concrete partly inside the first part of the concrete and partly in the second part of the concrete. So what happens is that if any water tries to enter through this joint, now you can see here this water is trying to enter through this joint, then this water bar will not allow it to come inside, because this is a continuous membrane which goes like this along the uh, horizontal as well as vertical direction, and therefore these types of water bars are provided. In this particular sketch you will see two types of water bars. One type of water bar which is provided in the construction joint, and one type of water bar which is provided in the expansion joint. Now what is the difference between these two? I will not cover right now in this lecture because that will take some time to explain. Just remember that water bars are provided at construction joints and expansion joints, and these are normally made out of some types of rubbers, and they are flexible in nature. They are strips of rubber. Now similar to water bar, there could be water stops. So as you saw that the water bars were provided inside the concrete, they were made part of the concrete, while as the rubber stops, as you can see, they are made out of PVC and they are provided from outside. So while the concrete is being cast, these bars, these water stops will be provided from outside at the joint, and they also will prevent the water from coming inside. So you can see the similar type of water stop here, another water stop here. You can also see the peculiar design or profile of this water stop. As you can see that it has got a sort of a dove-tailed profile. Because of this, what happens is that during the concreting, this particular part catches or goes inside the concrete and it is not going to move, or it is not going to get displaced. So that is why this is particular type of design is there for the PVC water stop. So this is made out of PVC. Now so this is important point, earlier point which we saw, that water bars are made out of rubber strips and water stops are made out of the PVC material. Next is going to be another method which can be used, which is going to be important from waterproofing purposes. So remember, one important thing is that what I told you is that this excavation has been done for this particular basement. Now the excavation will be much more bigger than the basement, because the people have to go inside this area and have to work on the basement, and later on this portion will have to be backfilled. So now if this portion is again filled with the same material like your regular let us say clay or other things, then what will happen is that this will remain wet for a long period of time, and as a result of that there is more possibility of water entering into the basement. So instead of filling this back by the clay material or the soil, what we do is we fill this with the help of gravel. Gravel means stone pieces. So what happens as a result of this is, suppose even there is water present in this soil here which I am showing right now, and that water tries to enter into this gravel. This gravel is loose, it is porous, and therefore what happens is that the water starts going down. It starts traveling down as a result of gravity. Once it goes down, there is a perforated pipe positioned at the bottom, and this pipe goes on all around the structure, as you can see here, and sometimes even below the structure like this. So this could be the main basement, and outside the basement you will see that this perforated pipe is going all around this structure. It has been given a slope in these directions, and this leads to a underground water tank which we call as a sump, and all this water which is going to get collected in the perforated pipe travels along the slope and goes into this underground water tank, and then once this water tank fills up to a certain level, this water gets pumped out because of the automatic pumping system. So this is one of the preventive measures, in which case we don't keep the water stagnant in this part. It continuously, this water keeps on moving down towards the perforated pipe and being taken out. So this is a very important system which is sometimes also called as the French drain system. Now the next part we'll be starting with looking at the actual active treatments, waterproofing treatments which are there. So the first type of treatment which we see is the asphalt tanking. So asphalt, we have already learnt about what is meant by asphalt. So this asphalt is applied in coats. So you will see that this is a tanking treatment. So it has to go all around the structure, for the retaining wall also and for the basement also. So now let us look at the way that this is done. So first the excavation will be done, then the concrete will be laid. This is the PCC for giving a level surface. Then on top of this PCC, this asphalt treatment will be given. So as you can see here, this is 30 millimeter thick horizontal asphalt and it is applied in 3 coats. Then once this is done, we have to cast the raft slab on top of this. So the raft slab would mean that you will be having the reinforcement inside it, the people would be working here and so on. So this asphalt is going to get damaged if we do not give it any protective coat. So if you'll see that after the asphalt there is a coat which is given on top. This coat is made out of a mortar layer or a grout. So this is going to protect the asphalt while the raft construction is going on. So then this raft will be cast. Along with the raft, a small portion of the retaining wall will also be cast along with the raft. So this portion is called as the kicker. Kicker means this is going to be the part of the retaining wall which will be cast along with the raft. The kicker does two things. One is that it prevents the joint being formed at the very base here. And the second thing it does is that it provides a sort of a template for putting the formwork for the retaining wall. So that is why the kicker is given here. That is part of the wall. The raft is constructed along with the raft. And then inside this, the water bar is provided in the raft while it is being cast, and part of it is left out. Once this is done, then the formwork is erected. Once this is set, the formwork is erected, and then the concrete is cast in this part. So this water bar is now positioned both in the retaining wall as well as the raft. So this is called as the water bar. This is a continuous membrane. So you can see this coming out from the screen towards you. So this is a rubber water bar. And then the same treatment which we saw here, a similar treatment will be done on the side on the retaining wall. So as you can see here, this is about 20 mm thick vertical asphalt applied in 3 coats. Then again, what is going to happen is that we are going to backfill this portion. There is going to be an excavation here, and we are going to backfill it by using gravel and other things. So again, there is a possibility that this asphalt will get damaged. So to protect it, what we do is that we actually construct a small brick wall in front of this and fill this gap with grout. So what happens is that because of the brick wall, the asphalt is going to be protected from the backfilling which is going to be done from the side. So this is the external mastic asphalt tanking, and this is done from the positive side. Positive side means the point from where the water is actually present. Now similar type of thing could be done from the negative side, so from the inside of the structure. Now it is not a good thing to do the waterproofing from the inside or the negative side, because what is happening here is that the water would have already entered into this wall and into the raft, and what we are doing is we are applying this only as a coating so that we don't see the water entering into the basement. But there could be some reasons why negative side waterproofing is to be done. For example, if this boundary is common boundary with the adjoining plot, in that case we cannot go on the side of the other person to do the waterproofing. So in such cases we will have to necessarily do the waterproofing from the inside, and it will not be possible to excavate in this portion and do the waterproofing. So this is called as internal mastic asphalt tanking. In this case also you will see that there is the asphalt tanking which is done. There is a layer of screed to protect. Then there is a wall, again a protective wall which is there. So this is the internal mastic asphalt tanking. These are the notes on that. but I think I have explained all this to you in the lecture, so I will share this PPT with you later. You can read these notes at leisure. Next is Shahabat tile waterproofing. This is a very common type of waterproofing treatment. In this case, we are going to use a tile which is an impervious tile, which we call as the Shahabat tile. And here what is done is that once the PCC is cast, this is the PCC which used for leveling, that is the PCC below the foundation. On top of that, what we do is we regularly lay a tile, Shahabat tile flooring. We do it with the screed. At the bottom you will see that this is the screed, that is mortar, cement mortar, and in cement mortar we lay the Shahabat tiles, and the joints in the Shahabat tile will be grouted, or they will be filled with a special filler which is called as a joint filler. So what happens is that this forms a sort of an impervious surface, and any water which is coming inside from the bottom will be prevented from entering in because of the Shahabat tile. Once this Shahabat tile is laid, then the raft can be cast. As I told you, again the kicker will be cast along with that. The rubber water bar will be put in. Then the raft will be cast. And then similar to what we have done here, we have done a Shahabat tile flooring. Instead of that, here we will be doing a Shahabat tile cladding. So layer by layer this will be put in. The Shahabat tiles will be actually put on the wall, and then this gap which is left in between the Shahabat tile and the wall will be filled by means of a grout. So the cement grout is filled in to this gap. So normally what is done is that the Shahabat tile is taken, and at the four corners of the Shahabat tile you place the cement paste, and then stick the Shahabat tile onto the wall with the cement paste, and just go on doing this layer, one layer at a time. Once the one layer is completed, then this grout is poured from the top till it fills the portion or layer and then starts coming out. Then you do the second layer, again fill the grout, again do this third layer, again fill the grout, and so on. So this will be how the Shahabat tiles are fixed from the outside. Now this is another type of system which is used, and this is also again a negative type of waterproofing treatment, negative side of waterproofing treatment. In this case also it is not possible to go from the outside to do the waterproofing for some reason. So in that case what is done is that it is assumed that some amount of water will come in through the retaining wall, but we don't want that water to come inside the structure because it will damage the internal part of the structure. And therefore what we do is we purposefully keep a cavity between the retaining wall, and this cavity is created by constructing another wall on the inside, a brick wall on the inside. So we create a 50 millimeter cavity. So what happens is that any water which comes inside through this particular retaining wall would go inside this cavity, get collected at the bottom, and then from this bottom it will be taken along a slope to a drain, and then that drain will open into an underground water tank, and then the water will be pumped out. So here we are doing this from the negative side, and we are assuming that some amount of water is going to come in from the retaining wall. So this is not a very good or perfect method, but this is a method which has to be done because we cannot go on the positive side and do the waterproofing. Now similar to the cavity which we keep here, at the bottom we can also create a sort of a cavity by using some special type of tiles. So these are called as the dry angle tiles, which are like sort of triangular tiles with some projections. So as you can see, this is how the tile is fixed. This is the underside of the tile. We will see that as a result of placing these tiles next to each other, there is a gap or a cavity created below them. So the water can actually pass through these gaps, and it can again be given a slope, and that water will get collected here and then taken to the underground tank or sump, and from there it will be pumped out. So in both these cases we are assuming that water will come inside through the retaining wall and also through the basement raft, and we allow that water to come inside to a certain extent and then drain it by the means of the cavity formed in the dry angle tiles and the cavity wall which we create. take that water into a sump and then pump it out. Now after that, what we are going to learn is about membrane waterproofing. So membrane waterproofing means forming or sticking an impervious membrane on the outer side of the structure to prevent the entry of water. Now this definition of membrane can also be used for the asphalt tanking, because there also we are using a membrane sort of. So membrane waterproofing will be of different types. So what you will see is that there are certain important points which you should remember when we are considering membrane waterproofing. So these are important points which you should note. So first important thing is that the membrane should properly adhere, or it should be stick to the surface. If it does not stick to the surface and gets peeled off, then the waterproofing cannot be done. Second is abrasion resistance. What it means is that while during the construction or during the backfilling, there could be some type of scratching of the surface or damage to the surface. So this is called as abrasion of the surface. So the membrane has to be abrasion resistant. Third is that there could be some chemicals inside the water or inside the soil, so it should be chemical resistant. Then it should be able to expand and contract due to various factors. Then it should have elongation length, so it should be sort of elastic, so that there is no crack formation. If it is a very rigid material, then there could be cracks which are formed. So it should have tensile strength, and then it should not tear also very easily, so tear strength. So these are some of the requirements of a membrane. Now there are going to be two types of membrane waterproofing. One is which is made out of sheets, and the other which is made out of liquid membranes. So liquid is applied, whereas here the sheets will be pasted, or they will be sort of the adhesion of the sheets will be done onto the surface, whereas here the liquids will be either brushed on or sprayed onto the surface. So there are types of sheet membranes which you can see here. So metal sheets in the form of lead, copper, stainless steel, and so on. Multi-layer bituminous paper systems with gravel topping, butyl rubber sheeting, then semi-rigid asbestos asphalt sheeting, bitumen polythene sheets. EPDM is a type of a rubber again, ethylene propylene diene monomer. So these could be again applied. Then chlorosulfonated rubber called as Hapalon. Then PVC polyvinyl chloride, which is or regular PVC sheets which are there. Then neoprene rubber, another type of rubber. So EPDM is a type of rubber, neoprene is another type of rubber. Then torch on sheeting consisting of layers of polypropylene bitumen modified. So torch on means that when you apply this bituminous material, the joints will be sealed by the use of a blowtorch, or heating that joint and then fusing the joints. So you could just remember some of these names. You might be asked in the exam what the types of membranes which are used for sheeting. Then there are liquid membranes, that is coatings. So it could be mastic asphalt as we saw earlier. Then two component polyurethane tar modified. So polyurethane is a sort of a chemical which can be applied with the help of brush or with the help of spray. Then epoxy coatings. Then polyurethane single pack moisture curing. Water based epoxy 2-part for hydrostatic pressure, polyester resin with fiberglass mat, flexible epoxy resin in 2 parts, bitumen latex modified single pack, acrylic copolymer water based single part, and so on. So you can just remember a few names out of this if you are asked in the exam what is the types of liquid membranes which are used. But remember that these are all going to be proprietary systems. Proprietary systems means that these are going to be manufactured by some companies. So the architect is not going to specify possibly the chemical composition or other things in this, but he will study what are the different available options and then the specifications given by the company, he will see that which is the best type of compound to be used for the particular basement. And then with consultation of the people from the company, or consultation with your uh, plumbing consultant or waterproofing consultant, you will choose which type of proprietary material is to be used. So that is going to be important, that the study of that is going to be important from the point of view of architect. Next type of sheets which can be used here is called as the bentonite sheets. So here again that mention of bentonite has come. We have seen bentonite used in the case of pile foundation, but there it was used in a different way. There it was used for this thixotropic properties, where it would keep the excavation from falling inside, excavated earth from falling inside. But here this is used for a different type of property. So let us look at that. So bentonite is a type of a naturally occurring clay. As I told you, this is similar to your multani mitti which you apply for your face pack. So this type of bentonite is there. There are different types of bentonite based on the chemical composition, but basically this is a naturally occurring earth. So bentonite has various properties which are useful for construction work. We have studied the property of bentonite for pile foundations. The property of bentonite which is used in waterproofing is that it swells when coming in contact with water. So this is an important property of bentonite. So what is done is that the sheets are made out of bentonite. So as you can see, this is a type of a flexible type of sheet. So the sheet consists of 3-layered membrane. One layer is made out of high density polyethylene, HDPE, which stands nothing but sort of some type of plastic. Then the inner layer is of sodium bentonite, that is, it contains the bentonite earth, and the outer layer is of polypropylene, that means again some type of plastic which is there from the outside. So what is happening is that this HDPE, or high density material which is there, sort of a plastic as I told you, is going to prevent the water from entering inside. So this will be the first line of defense. Then the bentonite which is there in between, what happens is that if water comes in contact with the bentonite, it will swell. Now when it swells, it is going to occupy a larger space, and thereby what is going to happen is it is going to seal the cracks and pores inside the surface. So sheets consisting of 3-layered membrane. These sheets are put on surface with a 100 mm overlap on the wall and raft from outside. So these are used from outside, and when the water comes in contact with this bentonite, it swells and seals any cavities which are present inside that. So that is what you should remember. So what is important is that as an architect you should remember that such type of sheets are available. These again, as I told you, will be proprietary sheets. They will be manufactured by certain companies, and therefore you have to know that such type of sheets are available, and then how they are used, or what is the property because of which these sheets can help you in waterproofing. Now the next method which we use is called as crystallization method of waterproofing. So this is a relatively new technology. So there are some special chemicals developed by companies such as BASF, which can be used as a coating or can be mixed with the concrete during the manufacture. So what is this chemical? So it is basically a chemical. It can be used, either you can brush it on the outer face or inner face, or you can use it while the concreting is going on. So the property of this chemical is that when that chemical comes in contact with water, crystals get formed. So as you can see, that where will the water be present inside the structure? It will be present in places where there are cracks or pores. So wherever that water enters into the structure, and if this chemical is present there, what will happen is that immediately the minute that it comes in contact with the water, it will create crystals. You can see here, this is water entering inside the crevice. This is a sort of a crack which is there inside the concrete. The water is entering inside. Immediately the water enters inside, this chemical turns into crystals, and it will not allow the water to go further inside. It will not allow it to penetrate. So this is the speciality of this crystallization method. So one of the advantages of this method is that it can be used from the positive as well as negative side. So even there is a leakage from a slab, let us say, and from you cannot repair it from the positive side, then you can also apply this chemical from the negative side, and then it will go inside the cracks and it will form crystals and seal that. So here it is shown how it works. So what you can see is that here it has been shown that the water has entered inside the concrete. This is a concrete block and the water has entered inside the concrete block as a result of the cavities and cracks which are present. Now here what they are showing is that this is the chemical which has been applied to that. As a result of this chemical, what has happened is that the crystals have started forming. And here what you'll see is that as the water penetrates more and more inside, more crystals get formed and this entire portion gets sealed. So there is the pores and cracks, they get sealed and no water can penetrate through this. So this is a modern method of waterproofing, which is called as the crystalline method or crystallization method. So this was about it for the waterproofing. I hope this lecture was useful to you to revise the portion. If you have any queries, you can contact me on WhatsApp or drop a mail. But most important point which you should note is, again, which I told you, that you have been already given notes on this topic in PDF format. So you should also read those notes along with this lecture and prepare for your exam. So thank you.